There was an interesting rabbi who lived in Europe during the 18th and 19th century. His name was Rabbi Avraham Danzig. Rabbi Danzig was born in the city of Danzig in 1748, moved as a young man to Prague, where he studied there, but most of his life he lived in Vilna. He was never a rabbi in Vilna till his later years of life. He was a businessman. He traveled. He went a lot to Eastern Europe. He traveled a lot to Western Europe, Central Europe, Berlin, other places to do his business. But he was a brilliant rabbinical scholar. And towards the end of his life, a tragedy happened. In the courtyard where he lived in Vilna, there was a big storage room where all of his merchandise was kept. This storage house seemed to have gunpowder in it for some reason. It exploded and his whole business was destroyed. But because he was such a great scholar, the rabbinical leadership, the city leadership, the Jewish leadership, decided to hire him, pay him to be part of the rabbinical leadership of the city. Now, what he did exactly, nobody knows. It's called, he was a Moretz Tzedek. Could be he was a judge, a dayan, could be he was a teacher, could be was he mashgiach kashrut, to check, no one knows. But Rabbi Danzig did something very unique. For the first time since Rabbi Yosef Cairo published a comprehensive Shulchan Aruch, for the first time since the 16th century, he published a comprehensive Shulchan Aruch. No, there were books on topics, there were Shelot v'Tshuvot, response literature, but no one had written and published a comprehensive work like he did. He called it the Haye. In his lifetime, it became so popular, people were forming study groups to study the Haye. And he succeeded to publish 2 editions while he was alive. One in 1810, very important date to remember, and one in 1818. One of the topics, obviously, in the Shulchan, oh, thank you. Mahior! Fits into the Kabbalah, something we have liked. So, one of the topics, which is the Shulchan Aruch, and he discusses, is Kitniyot. What are Kitniyot? English is legumes, but in reality what it is, it's types of vegetables which you can make flour from. Rice. Potatoes are ignored. That's another thing. But buckwheat, rice, vegetables. Now, according to the Talmud, based on the Torah, there's only 5 grains which can become chametz on Pesach. These kitniyot, legumes, vegetables, are added, additional things that the rabbis introduced. Why? We'll get to that in a minute. Now, when did this begin? Wasn't in the Torah. The Talmud, when discussing the 5 grains, one rabbi says, and rice also. The other rabbi said, you're wrong, you're out. And they didn't accept it. The Geonim, That's already the 7th, 8th, or the 8th century, 9th. They already said, all they know about the minhag, about the custom, not relevant. The early Rishonim, 12th century, talk about the minhag existing. One or two of them, and I'm not getting into names now because it's not relevant, said, you should keep this because maybe you'll get confused between this flour and real chametz flour, between rice flour and chametz and real leaven. What's the Torah says? The 5 kinds of grain. Maybe, and they were talking about porridges and kasha and things like that. But it wasn't chametz. Majority of the rabbis avoided it. As time went on, especially in Eastern Europe, amongst the Ashkenazim, the topic became more and more popular. To the extent where the custom became a real custom. So you come to the time of the Shulchan Aruch. I'm skipping now, there's all kinds of Maril, other people, they all talk about it. Some saying Asur, it's prohibited. Some saying it's Mutar. I'm not getting into that. Let's go to the Shulchan Aruch. So Rav Yosef Cairo, the author of the Shulchan Aruch, Sfardi himself, mentions it in the Bet Yosef, but in reality says it's not Asur. It's not Chametz. The Ramah, Moshe Isserus, the great posek of the Ashkenazi world, no good, it's Asur. Kitniyot are Asur. So became the minhag, no rice, no kasha. The only thing they got away with, and I don't understand completely why, is potatoes. Maybe they couldn't live without potatoes, I don't know. Maybe they didn't make potato starch at that time like we do today. I don't know if you know, like they have these Pesach programs. They have all over the world, in Italy, in Greece, in Hawaii, and all over America and Israel. And when they go there, they feed you like you never saw food in your life. And chas v'shalom, you should go for 1 week without bagels, without pizza. And they make it for you, all from potato starch. It looks like it, tastes kacha, but it looks like it. But for some reason, they got away with it. There was one place they used it, but I'll mention that later on. Anyway, this became in the Ashkenazic world halacha. The custom turned into law. You cannot eat chametz on. You cannot eat kitniyot during Pesach. Questions came up. What do I do b'shatat chak? What do I do in a case of an emergency? Someone's sick. It's all you can feed him is this mush from Kitniyot. What do I do when there was bad crops? There's not enough food to eat. Can I eat Kitniyot? The Haye discusses it, and he is somewhat lenient about it. He says, keep away from the things that really look like Kitniyot, like kasha, or if you avoid it, you can avoid it. Other Kitniyot are okay. If it's an emergency, even if it's not life and death and you're sick, you can use it. Okay? You open the Haye, there is a whole section, it's called a klal. He didn't call it perek, he called it a klal. Whole section on dvarim asurim mipnei minhag, things that are prohibited because of a minhag, because of a custom. He mentions Kitniyot, the major first paragraph, skips down, goes to other ones, and then he goes into a whole shakla v'tarik, a whole discussion about why you cannot annul a minhag. Why, if you, as a group, as a large group especially, accepted upon yourself a minhag consciously, not mistaken, why you are stuck with it, why you have to keep it. Very good. This section really belongs in the Shulchan Aruch Yoredeya, in a different section completely of the Shulchan Aruch, not what the Haye is dealing with. But he felt it important enough to mention it in this klal, klal 127 in the Haye. Okay, we can understand it. Now, he didn't say it, Kitniyot, one time. But this is obviously connected to the issue of Kitniyot, or else why is it doing here? He also had a very interesting tshuva, a responsa. The responsa is in a section called Nishmat Adam. The Haye Adam is divided into two sections. The main section with the laws, and then a rabbinic commentary called Nishmat Adam. And in this tshuva, he said, there's a famine in this and these places, and this year. Can you be more lenient with Kitniyot? He discusses how to be more lenient. The most interesting thing, and he gets to the very end. He says, in Fur, in Germany, I think that is, they, in general, on Pesach, they prohibited Kitniyot of potatoes. It's the only source that I could find that discusses during this period of history, potatoes. It says, over in this place. And because of the famine, they gathered a Beit Din, and they gathered a court, a rabbinical court, and they permitted potatoes. Okay, thank God we don't have that problem today, or the Jews will starve to death for 1 week. All this is very fine. All this is very nice. In my research, by the way, how much time do I have? Because I'm not going to talk too long.
You have the time, 10 minutes, 15 if you want.
I got not too much to say, but if you want to read it, it's about 30 pages. In my research, in looking, you're seeing, he has 2 editions. I have a copy of each edition, not originals, but a copy. Got it on HebrewBooks.org, found it, downloaded, all printed out, everything's good. I put it up. Look in the second edition, which most of our editions today are based on the second edition. Everything's fine. It's the same, great. I opened the first edition. I'm looking. There is no klal, there's no section 127 that talks about minhag. The custom is forbidden because of minhag. It doesn't exist. What happened? This already, for doing research, this is beautiful. You glow. You found something beautiful. What happened? So I started to do research. And what I discovered was, in 1810, the exact same year that the Haye came out, first edition, was published a declaration by the Consistoire in Westphalia, in Germany. Now, who are the Consistoire? In 1807, the Napoleon states took over parts of Prussia. Westphalia was one of them. And throughout the Napoleon states, they created this Jewish body to govern the Jewish things. With Jew rabbis, everything on it. In Westphalia, there was a man called, what's his name? Whatever his name. He was one of the founders of the Reform movement, and also a big member of the Haskalah. And he, I forget his name out there, I remember, I'm embarrassed, I forgot. Israel Jacobson. And he printed a declaration in 1810, the same year of Haye, saying like this: the soldiers have to defend their country. That's part of Napoleon's idea that the Jews should be citizens like everyone else and be part of the army. But they don't have enough matzah on Pesach. Can we permit for them, he's asking, Kitniyot? And he goes on. And then he says a whole list of things, even quoting one of the great rabbis of the period then, the Chacham Tzvi and his son Rav Yaakov Emden, who were against the prohibition of Kitniyot. And then he says, since we are responsible to work in favor of the Jews, and this will result, if we're not careful, in discriminating against the Jewish religion, and this should not be endangered, it is our responsibility to permit Kitniyot, so the Jews can fulfill their civil duties. They could be soldiers. What did he do here? He tried to manipulate the halacha. He tried to use the soldiers as a mean to get a heter, to get permission to make Kitniyot permitted on Pesach. Okay. The rabbis started to yell and scream from all over Western and Eastern Europe. They started to write against it. And even the Consensuan in Paris said, how do you put out such a proclamation without speaking us to first? Everything else you come and speak to us. And this you do on your own? It is clear that the Haskalah was trying to undermine the prohibition of Kitniyot. They were trying to undermine the rabbinical authority of the time. Okay. They didn't stop. Even though the rabbis knocked them down and knocked them down, but they went to their newspapers. Haskalah in Europe at that time had newspapers. And they were writing again. They continued on till 18, 15, 16, so whatever it was. So this was the war of Kitniyot in Europe. Across the borders, Eastern, Central, Western. Because this was a challenge against rabbinical authority. And I'll talk about that in a minute. What did the Haye do? What did Rabbi Danzig do? In the second edition, I believe, he didn't want to let this go quiet. Now, his way, his literary style, the way he wrote, he never attacked head on. For example, he was very anti-Hasidism. He'll never say a word about it. But all through the Haye Adam, bang, Hasidim, without saying a word against them. Here, Haskalah too, he was against them. He knew what the Haskalah is. He knew what they were. He understood the beginning of Reform too, from his travel, from his understanding. So in the second edition, what he did was, he decided to write this whole long cloud with a tremendous emphasis why you cannot, why it is impossible, why there's no way in the world you can annul, you can cancel, you can permit everyone to eat Kitniyot on Pesach. Impossible. Because since every Jew in the Ashkenazic world took upon themselves this custom, since all the Jews of Eastern Europe now keep Kitniyot, and they did it willingly, he compares it to a woman and the laws of Nidah, of a menstruous woman. That the laws of Nidah were instituted not as halacha, not as Jewish law, but as custom. And it became Jewish law that you cannot change. And I'm not going to get into the problematics of that. But Kitniyot is the same thing according to his definition of custom that cannot be annulled. In summary, I just want to read you, it's very short, what I believe summarizes what Menachem Alon wrote on custom that describes accurately Rabbi Avram Danzig. Through the medium of custom, the entire Jewish people, including its various groups and classes, have participated in the continued development and creation of Jewish law. At the same time, the halachic authorities, without constraining this public initiative and creativity, have guided custom into reasonable and logical channels and integrated to the fullest possible extent that overall halachic system, and especially with the fundamental concepts and the principles of equity and justice in Jewish law. The life of the people have been based on the foundation of halacha and its processes. Even if the people are not prophets, they are descendants of prophets, thus to be presumed that their customs are in harmony with the spirit of the Torah. People make custom, then makes law. My personal opinion is that this was a problem of rabbinical authority. The rabbis were threatened, and therefore they had to fight back. And they fought back with the strongest conviction not to permit. And allow me, and don't put this in writing anywhere, to go a step further. Today in Israel, there is a big problem of Kitniyot. Most of Am Yisrael in Israel today, religious people, eat Kitniyot. They're Sephardim. Why don't they permit it? What's the big issur? There's ways to permit it. There's rabbinical loopholes to get around it. If the conservative and reform movements wouldn't make so much noise about it, if the Tzioni Dati left-wingers wouldn't make so much noise about it, and it would be quiet, they would have muttered it years ago. But since it keeps being a big issue, every year again, newspapers, they say that you should, you shouldn't. Everything said, Lochlei Kitniyot, the law, Lochlei Kitniyot, it's ridiculous. Now, they didn't permit it, I can't eat it, but they, no question. And not only don't they permit it, they even are adding extra Kitniyot. There are new things that the rabbis never heard of that for the first couple of years were okay. Suddenly, they're Kitniyot. For example, I don't know what this stuff is called. Kimwat, right? That's the latest Mishnahs. So, in my humble opinion, maybe one day Am Yisrael will come together and we'll eat Kitniyot on Pesach. Thank you.
Thank you.